Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Louisiana Gameday, your one-stop shop for all things Louisiana college football. From the 504 to the 225, the 318 to the 337, we are giving you everything you need to know on this Saturday in the boot. My name is Bryce, aka Redfish, aka Cajun Reese Davis, and I'm joined by some fellow content creators from around the state, ready to tell you what to know on this beautiful Saturday morning. We're going to cover Louisiana Tech, UL Lafayette, as well as our wonderful HBCUs around the state. And then we'll wrap it all up with LSU. So make sure to stay tuned all the way through. Check us out on all social medias at Be in the Know. You can see it there in the bottom left hand corner, or go to theknow.com to learn more about us as people, what we do, as well as read our articles, watch our podcasts all around the state. So thank you very much for coming in and tuning in this morning, or if you're watching back after the games, we hope we got all the predictions right. We hope all of our teams won, even though we know that's a low possibility um, for this year in Louisiana. Without any further ado, let's kick it off to a team that had to travel all the way across the United States, it feels like, to a little old state called Delaware, the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs.
Yes, sir. This is a rough part of our schedule, having to go to Delaware and then right back out to Washington State. But I think we're coming off of a strong win, 55-14 on Halloween night, where we saw our biggest rushing game and since 1991, most rushing yards for the team since then. We had two running backs get over 100 yards. So I think going into Delaware, if we can keep up that rushing game and kind of open up some passing lanes for Eli Finley, for Blake Baker to hit, I think we'll be in a pretty good stance. I think our defense is finally coming around to losing our start linebacker Fields. I think they're finally coming around to put it all back together.
Fields, specifically in that game against LSU, he was the one guy who I was like, he does not stop. Um, really high
Dog.
motor player and just like all over the field. Was talking that talk all game. He was phenomenal. So that's a big loss. That is very unfortunate um, for the city of Ruston. But looking at today's game, um, the Bulldogs are sitting at 5-3. Had that heartbreaker of a loss in overtime a couple weeks ago to Western Kentucky. If you win that game, then you're sitting at 6-2, going into being favorites for your last three out of your last four games. So I mean, it should be an interesting end of the season here for LA Tech. Obviously, they are favorites today against Delaware. -5.5 is that line today at 2 o'clock, where they travel on up to the north. You say it might be a tough game. It looks like they are favorites, but what do you think could be a factor to them kind of dragging their feet?
Well, luckily for us, the weather today in Delaware is going to be pretty nice. So from right here, it's going to be 69 degrees for the game time, which that was one of my worries about when this was on our schedule, was that it's going to be mid-November. It's going to be tough if it gets real cold up there.
Hmm.
Luckily, we kind of stayed away from the weather. That long travel, especially just our with the way that we have to travel this year, I think we've only had one game where we've had to bus, and that was LSU, compared to what we're going to see next year or the year after when we go to the Sun Belt, where we're going to bus to almost every game for football. So travel is always a factor. Um, we still have to see completely how the defense does bounce back from losing Fields a couple weeks ago, because yes, against Sam Houston, they were there and they were playing really well, but it is Sam Houston. So, and Delaware has one of the strongest offensive efficiency teams in the country right now. So, have to see if they can keep it up, keep going.
Yeah, the Blue Hens just added to the college football landscape in the FBS, um, or Division one of the two. I don't remember which one. They bumped up somehow, but here they are, ready to make their mark, and LA Tech's trying to stop them. Looking forward for the rest of the season. Obviously, you have today, and then, like you said, you got to fly on over to Washington State next week. Um, you've got 4 games left. You're sitting at 5-3. You only need one more to become bowl eligible. What do you think, after this season wraps up, what do you think we're looking at moving forward for the Bulldogs?
I think we have to look back to what some of our players said um, prior to this game today in some of their press conferences, and how six wins is not the goal for us, and it never will be the goal for us. And just becoming bowl eligible is not what we want. We want to win 9+ games. We want the conference titles. We want to try to fight for that group of 5 spot, that top 5 conference spot in the playoffs. That's what we want to fight for. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I think they've, over the past 4 years or so, they've really made a difference in that program. They went from schedule Louisiana Tech if you want to win to like, no, they're one of those group of 5 teams that you don't want to catch on an off night. Um, so I think really really good things are happening in Ruston.
yeah, absolutely. I like no one expected us to go into LSU this year and put up a fight, but we all saw that we fought back, even though the final score isn't exactly what we would like to see. We would love to beat LSU. We'd love to beat everyone on our
I mean, to
schedule.
be fair,
But
LSU this year, I mean, I feel like
oh,
you could have beaten us at some point. We are not very good.
I do believe if we played the type of offense, especially while everyone was healthy, still in our from our team, if we played the offense that we played after we played y'all, so Blake Baker, our starting quarterback, or even what we did last week, so our starting quarterback against y'all is now playing as an ATH style player, just playing out of the
Hmm.
backfield and playing like in motion as like a running back and like and stuff like that with Blake Baker being our quarterback. I think if we play that type of offense against y'all, I think it's a lot closer. Not necessarily a
Blake
win, but a
Baker
lot
versus Blake
closer.
Baker, you say?
Yeah, good.
That would have been interesting. I like that. Um, but no, we'll continue to look forward to what's going on with LA Tech. Hopefully, they can pull out the win today against Delaware, become bowl eligible, and then continue fighting. Like you said, towards conference championships, towards being that group of 5 team that nobody wants to face, that ends up, at the end of the season, fighting for that 12th spot in the playoff. Um, so kind of, staying in the basically the same city. We're going to kick it on over to Grambling, who pulled out a very tough fought win last week against Alabama A&M to continue their winning streak.
Yeah, offense optional in that game. It was definitely a very on paper it looks like a close, hard fought defensive game. When in actuality, it was just 2 terrible offenses. The worst part about all of this and what's going on in the SWAC is just about every starting quarterback is hurt. Every backup is hurt, and every third stringer is hurt. If you look at it, the top teams that are remaining all seem to have one thing in common, and that is health. Uh, Outside of Jackson State and Alabama State, who have their quarterbacks banged up, but Grambling, technically, with all things said and done, are not mathematically eliminated. However, with them being on their third string quarterback, I think they are actually on a walk on at this point. They are facing a team in Bethune Cookman who has scored no less than 31 points in their last 7 games. Bethune Cookman is playing for a chance to make it to the SWAC championship and possibly the Celebration Bowl, and they have a lot to play for in itself. If they win today and they beat Jackson State, then they just have to hope that Alabama State stumbles, which is a possibility considering Alabama State starting quarterback is out. He's not out for the season. He is just banged up with a sore shoulder, so he's resting. So Bethune-Cookman has a chance, and they have a lot to play for. It's going to be a very interesting game in the sense of we'll get to see the grit of Grambling versus the will of Bethune-Cookman. Unfortunately, I think that will is going to play out. It looks as though this Grambling team will be playing for pride, and let's see what we can get going for next year and see if we can break this losing streak in the Bayou Classic. That's kind of where we sit with that, and I think the Bayou Classic is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely will. Before we get there, just kind of wrapping up what we're talking about for Grambling today. Interestingly enough, they are betting favorites for today, which is kind of like you said. It feels like Bethune-Cookman's on a different. They're on
Yeah.
two different paths here. Although Grambling is on that 3-game winning streak, they beat Jackson State 2 weeks ago in Vegas. The difference in being on, like you said, basically a walk-on quarterback at this point, scoring 13 points last week, versus a team who's scored no less than 30. That just doesn't, necessarily add up in our minds. But hey, you got to give Mickey Joseph credit for what he's doing. You got to give those players credit for taking a season that they, losing back-to-back Prairie View and Texas Southern. It was all but written over. And then they beat APBU, they beat Jackson State, they beat Alabama A&M in a very close game. So they figured out how to win games. It's not pretty. It's not anything you want to go watch. You might cover your eyes a couple times while you're watching it, but they figured out how to win. If they can figure out how to win today, like you said, they are not mathematically eliminated for making it to the SWAC championship.
Yeah. So I do want to throw this out there. The win last week, they did not score a touchdown. I'm sorry, they did not score an offensive touchdown. The touchdown they scored was on a punt return. So that kind of adds to the woes. Them being betting favorites, I kind of lean that to just a little bit of ignorance of not knowing and just kind of not watching the team as much.
There's a big difference in seeing Alabama and LSU betting lines versus seeing a Grambling versus Bethune-Cookman betting line. Absolutely, you have to acknowledge that.
Yeah. But yeah, I like you said, though, I do want to say that this has been a tremendous job for what Mickey Joseph has been able to do. The question remains, though, is this enough for the Grambling faithful to give their trust to him for one more year, or with all the coaching, rumors swirling, carousels, going on, do we even see Mickey back?
And you would like to assume that even if they lose today, they can finish out 8-4, just based on the record of the two teams they face. They faced probably the worst two teams in the SWAC. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I know Florida A&M is not very good either, but Alcorn and Southern have both been just bad this year.
Yeah, but they're going to face Alcorn at a very bad time because Alcorn is picking up steam. I think they've won 3 in a row, and they play Southern today.
Which that'll be an interesting matchup, and that's where I wanted to go next. So you led us perfectly into it. Alcorn versus Southern is going to be interesting. You look at what happened, with the head coaching job and where those two teams are at right now. I mean, like you said, Alcorn's won a couple in a row, and they're looking to continue that battle today against the Jaguars.
Yeah. So I mentioned before the show, and I'll just kind of tell to the audience, we're now at the point of the season where the storylines are a lot better than the games. This is what I mean. Back in the end of 2022, Fred McNair was the coach of Alcorn State. He decided to leave because he had a coaching opportunity at Texas Southern. It was all done, and it was, everything's done. It just needs the ink to dry on the contract. And lo and behold, the board yanks that deal, says not so fast. They do, say we want to do our due diligence. And they go out and hire somebody else, leaving Fred McNair out in the cold. He ends up going to Southern as the tight ends coach and eventually becomes the offensive coordinator and now the interim head coach. Well, he gets to face his former team today in, being in Alcorn in a game where it might be a little bit of a emotion because there's a lot of kids on that team that he brought in. There's a lot of kids on that team that he was their head guy for a long time. And this game is in Lorman, Mississippi. So how does the crowd kind of react to it? Seeing
that's interesting
beloved son,
because you have to think about it. Since he left in 22, I mean, those sophomores, those juniors are his recruits. Like those are guys he brought in, and I'm sure some of them left. Some of them decommitted when he decided he wasn't going to come back. But there's some guys who probably said, hey, this is my best shot at playing. So they
Mhm.
stayed. And now they're looking at a guy who, left them high and dry. And now he's on the other side for a team that has not lived up to expectations this year. And, like you said, I think emotions are going to be very high. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't a few fisticuffs during this matchup. Could start as early as the first quarter, but if it gets out of hand and it's one side's blowing out the other, I would expect something to happen late in the game.
Yeah. I also, in full transparency, I picked Alcorn to win the SWAC West rather. I picked Southern to be number 2, and as you already mentioned, they are probably 1 and 2 at the bottom.
See, that's what you meant when you said 1 and 2. You meant 1 and 2
Yeah,
at the bottom. We'll
yeah.
give you the pass.
And ironically, I picked Prairie View to finish 4th, and they are number 1. So go figure. So yeah, it's going to be
It
very
happens to the
interesting.
best of us. I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking to an LSU guy who put a bet in before the season on a national championship and a Heisman, and now we're 5-3 without a head coach. So nothing ever worked. The one guarantee in football is that it's not going to go the way you think it is. That is the one thing we know, especially college football.
Yeah.
You could watch a top 25 team lose any week, and then you can watch a team who everyone expected to be terrible make it into the college football playoff. So that's the great thing about college football is you never know what's going to happen. Obviously, we have a couple weeks until the Bayou Classic, but looking at it right now, obviously you're thinking Grambling's going to be a huge favorite. But in that game, records mean nothing, points mean nothing. That is a game all about pride in your city, pride in your colors, and bringing together the state of Louisiana just to have a good time. So
Interim tags mean nothing. So doesn't matter. We've had a interim coach win the Bayou Classic several times in this series. As a matter of fact, the guy that Southern just let go has won the Bayou Classic twice as an interim, once for Grambling, once for Southern.
like you said, the storylines are almost better than the football at this point.
Yeah.
Especially when you have all these coaches going different places, getting let go, and now he's playing against his former team, and then he's playing a team that wanted him but didn't get him, and it's just all this intertwining, basically DNA of college football. That's what you're seeing now once we get late into the season, and this offseason we know is going to be wild. So I'm looking very much forward to what happens once the whistles stop blowing and we can finally settle the dust on, who wins the national championship, but also who's the coach of these 15 teams without one right now. So let's look at the national landscape a little bit. Obviously, we like to do this every week. We do our road dog segment where we pick a team nationally who is going on the road and is a betting underdog. I'm going to kick it over to you first, Abdul, since you haven't gotten to talk yet. Give us who your road dog is for this week.
This one was going to be hard for me. There's not a lot of good games this weekend. But I went with BYU, who is plus 12.5 against Texas Tech today, just over an hour from now. Look, both of these teams have pretty decent offenses. I mean, obviously, Texas Tech has been, really, really good this season. The storyline about BYU is their running attack. However, Texas Tech's running defense is arguably the best in the nation. As a matter of fact, they are first in rushing yards allowed at 78 per game. So it's going to be a tough test for BYU. I don't see them winning this game outright. It is at Texas Tech. I don't see them winning this game outright. But I do think this game will be somewhat closer than what this spread is showing at 12.5. The over-under is 49.5. So they're looking at, somewhat a lower scoring game. So give me BYU to cover this spread here. I don't think they'll outright win this game, but I do like them to cover the spread here.
And College Game Day's there too, down in Lubbock, Texas. We'll all give our picks for this game later in the show. Tortillas will be flying. There will be some things said that shouldn't be said towards the BYU fans because that happens every time they go on the road. And it will be a very fun matchup of two top 10 teams based on the college football playoff rankings that came out this past Tuesday. So it should be a very, very fun matchup. We will see what happens down in Lubbock, Texas for the Red Raiders. All right, No Show, what you got for your road dog?
I'm kind of going back and forth on this. Do I take someone who, I think is hey, I just think this is too many points. Do I step out on a limb? What do I do? So I decided, you know what? Why not? Why, let's throw a caution to the wind. Give me Stanford. 7.5 points to UNC. I don't know if UNC has enough to score 7.5 points on their own. Bill Belichick and that team, they've shown some promise as of late. I don't know.
That's two dumpster fire teams right there. I mean, you take a Stanford team who in the mid 2010s was the pinnacle of college football when they had Harbaugh. And then you take a UNC team who had the highest expectations in Bill Belichick being the greatest NFL coach of all time. And now both teams are just struggling, to say the least. So, I mean, I could see that being an absolute slugfest of like a 13 to 15 matchup.
Yeah. With that said, I think UNC wins this game just simply because that cross country travel has been a killer for the ACC and the Big Ten. However, I don't think that UNC has enough to stretch this thing out past one possession.
Russ, what you got for us?
I was also going to take the BYU win, but it was a little bit too much for them, even with them being on the road against Texas Tech. But let's try to be different. Give me interim head coach Auburn to cover against Vanderbilt.
Man, you stole mine.
To cover against Vanderbilt.
Stole mine.
I think Vanderbilt's on their downturn. I think Vanderbilt's on their downturn this year after the past couple of games. I think Auburn is still trying to play that spoiler mentality that they always like to play when they're down like this. And so I think they go in there and they're going to try to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, that was my pick as well. I'll give a second one after, but I do want to talk about this one. The interim bump is real. It always happens and it doesn't make sense. I think it's like a team rallying around their new coach type thing. But DJ Durkin down in Auburn, he is fighting to keep that job. He's made it very clear he wants that interim tag removed. So I think he is going to try to do his best to win as many games as possible. And if you set your mark beating Vandy, your first game as interim head coach, man, what are you going to show the boosters? What are you going to show the athletic director? What are you going to show administration that maybe he's the guy for the job? So he's literally fighting for his job. And today is the perfect time to make his mark. He gets 6.5 points on the road as his first game as an interim head coach for a team that did not like their head coach. So I think this is going to be a fun matchup for Auburn fans to watch. Now, in Auburn fashion, I do expect them to lose the game in the most horrendous way possible because they do it every game. Whether it was Oklahoma or Georgia, they always find a way to lose in the hands of victory. So I don't know if they'll actually win the game, but I'll definitely take them to cover that 6.5. My secondary pick, it's hard because that's the one I really wanted, but give me Syracuse to cover against Miami. Miami has lost all momentum that they had earlier in the season. They were looking like possibly the number one team in the country, beating good teams and beating them well, and now it's just they are on a downfall, and they're getting 28.5 points against Syracuse. I think Fran Brown's a fantastic coach. It hasn't worked out for them this year. But if you look at their schedule, they had a really rough one, and they've played good teams well. So I think Syracuse can go into Miami tonight or today, excuse me, and cover the 28.5 points that they're getting on the road. So give me Syracuse as my secondary pick for a road dog. Moving on from the national landscape back into Louisiana college football, because that's what we're here to talk about. We are Louisiana Gameday after all. Going over to Cajun Sports Talk, our boy Abdul. if you guys don't follow them on social media, please do so. Putting out great content every single day. Obviously the season's not what we expected out of UL, but injuries have really come to make their mark down in the 337. However, things are kind of looking better than they were a few weeks ago due to our boy Lunch Winfield, former Lutcher High School state champion quarterback. He's coming to Lafayette and made his mark. So talk to us what you're seeing lately out of the Ragin' Cajuns.
Yeah, obviously not the season we were expecting, and probably won't finish anywhere near what we were expecting. But look, last week was a momentum booster for this team. You go into South Alabama, to Mobile, and you win the game. I mean, you at halftime the score was 24-7 Cajuns, so it looked like we were going to run away with it big time, and not just one of those wins where you're going to win off of like a one score final score, something like that. But yeah, no, it was 31-7 towards the end of the at the start of the third quarter, and credit to South Alabama, they try to come back, but it helped the Cajuns, to where they didn't have to rely on, oh shoot, now I got to go score again to go win this game. Like, you were up big time. That gave you enough of a lead to where you're not worried as much in the second half.
Yeah, built-in cushion.
Yeah, and it credit to the offense and defense. Honestly, this was probably the first game this season where both offense and defense were clicking and played really well together when it mattered the most. Defense, let up a little bit in the second half while South Alabama was trying to come back. But, the point is, when it mattered the most and when you needed to put up the points, you did it. Lunch Winfield went 14 out of 15, only one incompletion. By the way, at the end of the first half, I think he was like 12 for 12. The only incompletion that Lunch had was a deep pass to Shelton Sampson, which should have been called pass interference. I don't know if y'all were able to see it, but that should have been called pass interference. And if it was called pass interference, Lunch would have finished with a perfect game of 14 out of 14. He threw for 230 yards. So, 14 out of 15, 232 yards. That's just special performance right there. As far as the defense, they stepped up big time when they needed. Most notably, towards the end of the game when South Alabama was in goal line situation, it was first and goal, second and goal. And I'm not talking like 5 to 10 yards away from the end zone. They were like within 2 yards of scoring. And the Cajuns defense stood, and, it was fourth and goal, stood and turned over the ball right there, turnover on downs, and the Cajuns were able to win the game right there. So just a great performance last week against South Alabama. Not a team that you're really going to celebrate a huge, huge victory out of, but any victory in a season when you're going 2-6 is a good victory for the Cajuns.
Well, I think the best part about what the Cajuns are doing right now is they're doing exactly what we thought they would do when Walker Howard went down: is play physical, play defense, and run the ball. So now that you have Zylan Perry and Bill Davis, who we've talked about all season being a great 1-2 combo, they've put over 1,000 yards combined. You add Lunch Winfield into that, who's rushing for 100 yards a game, basically. Man, you have really set yourself up to, almost play like a service academy, right? That's what the service academies are known for, playing really physical, triple option, run the dang ball. And that's what UL's been able to do, and they've been successful in it.
Right. And look, you got to be able to pass the ball as well against these Sun Belt teams, especially Texas State, who we're playing today. They are one of the best passing teams in the country. Their quarterback, Brad Jackson, is coming in. He's a redshirt freshman. He had a 444-yard game the other week against Marshall. This kid can throw. He's averaging 250 yards per game. And not just that, but, they also run the ball pretty well. Texas State has always been known for, having a really good rushing attack. And they're coming into this game. Their running back has 650, their leading running back has 650 yards, 9 touchdowns on just 130 attempts. So they run the ball pretty well. Now, we don't have a really good running defense to really slow this down, unfortunately. But our passing defense is supposed to be good, and it has improved against South Alabama, who also has a really good quarterback. But Brad Jackson, it's going to be a really interesting game today to see how our defense plays against them. I think the over-under was at 64 earlier this morning when I was looking at it. It's at 63.5 right now. So they're looking at a somewhat pretty high-scoring game. UL is 3.5-point underdogs here at home. And by the way, look, we've never lost to Texas State. We are 12-0 against Texas State. We have played them every year since 2013, I believe it was, and we have never lost to them. This is potentially going to be the last rodeo between us and Texas State for the foreseeable future, because they are moving to what they believe is the better, where the sun, rises and sets in better conditions for them in the Pac-12, which to me doesn't make sense for a Texas State team. But they're doing it. They're
Conference
moving.
realignment is the worst thing that ever happened in college football.
It is.
It really bothers me. When I was in grad school, I wrote a paper on it about how just detrimental it is to the sport because of travel. And I mean, you're taking these kids out of the classroom, you're taking these kids and treating them, like 4 and 5 day road trips. You're ruining the whole point of college football, which is it's hilarious that people are in classrooms on Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday they're beating themselves up trying to make it to the NFL. So I mean, it just takes away kind of some of that allure. I know I'm going off on a rant here, but man, Texas State really opened the door for me to talk about how dumb it is.
It is. And I mean, look, to be honest, this is supposed to be, in their eyes, a better conference. Yet Texas State is going to finish the season. Even if they win out, they're still going to finish with a losing record against Sunbelt teams in their history in the Sun Belt. So,
which doesn't make sense because Texas State also has a really good head coach who's getting looked at for these bigger head coaching jobs. G.J. Kenny is a phenomenal head coach. He's getting looked at for Oklahoma State. He's getting looked at for Oregon State. If Eric Morris ends up leaving North Texas, I'm sure he'd get looked at for that job as well, which is more of a lateral move, but still North Texas has been phenomenal this season. So, it's tough to look at a Texas State team who's losing a lot of games with a really good head coach and a powerful offense like you've talked about. And they're coming into Lafayette. And you're saying, they're the favorite. I think it'll be a really interesting matchup today.
It will be. It will be a high-scoring game. Now, every time I say a game's going to be high-scoring, like Southern Miss, it turned out to be a low-scoring game. We only ended up with 32 total points in that game. So who knows what we'll expect here? Maybe the Cajuns defense will step up and slow down that Texas State offense tremendously. Maybe they won't. We're one of the best teams statistically in the country in passing yards allowed. But it's been very inconsistent. You've seen it, in a good fashion last week. Maybe it won't be as good this week or today, So it's going to be interesting. This is somewhat our bowl game. I don't see UL really finishing this season on a 3-0 note. You're going into Arkansas State next week, who's looking really good. They're contenders for the Sun Belt Conference Championship game right now with Southern Miss. And look, we should have beaten Southern Miss. We should have beaten James Madison. I mean, we've been close in these games. I just don't know if the Cajuns can really finish off 3-0. So they're taking it one game at a time, of course. And in this game against Texas State, who you've never lost to, this is pretty much your bowl game right here. This is it pretty much is your bowl game, because if you lose this game, you're not going to have a postseason. You win this game, you feel good. You've never lost to Texas State. Moving on to Arkansas State. I do think the Cajuns can pull this off today. It will be a high-scoring game, so if any indications are pointing at anything, it's going to be whoever has the ball last will win this game. And so we'll see how it goes. Give me the Cajuns to win this game 34-31. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring, interesting game this evening here in Lafayette.
Yeah, very exciting. Hopefully the Louisiana guys can continue to make a mark on their own state. I think that's what the most exciting thing to me is that you're seeing Lunch, you're seeing Bill, seeing Shelton Sampson. These guys who were born and raised in this state are being able to make their mark in this state.
And I got to give credit to Shelton Sampson. He looked really good last week. I mean,
he has really turned it around from a guy who got basically and now I can't say what happened behind the scenes because I'm not in the building, but it really felt like it was one of those things where it was like, hey, dude, you're not playing next year, so you might want to just get up on out.
It was awful. From what I understand, is that he has injuries in both of his pinkies. which I believe could probably be the reason why he was not catching passes in the first 4 games of the season. I mean, he went 7 out of 25.
Sounds insignificant, but as a wide
Right.
receiver, you kind of need that.
You do, yes. And so I guess, as much as I hate to say that hamstring injury where he sat out for a month really helped him, because helped him, improve, I guess, in the catching realm, and came back. And so far, he's been our leading receiver these past 2 games. So we'll see.
Shout out Shelton Sampson. Shout out to him. Great for him. Looking forward to the Cajuns building some momentum. And, like you said, it's hard to believe they'll finish out the season 3-0, but not impossible. You got a 3-6 Texas State team today. You got an Arkansas State team who, like you said, is in contention. But they're not a powerhouse by any means. And then you're going to close the season against the ULM Warhawks, which obviously Dusty couldn't be here today to talk about, but he did leave one comment, and that was please, please, please just win a game. That's what he wanted to portray. Before we move on to LSU, just want to mention Tulane last night did pull off the win against Memphis, which is a huge win for the Green Wave. Memphis, Tulane, and USF, we were talking about before that we hit live on this show. They're all 2-loss teams now. They're all 2-loss Group of 5 teams, and I think it's down to those 3 for who's going to represent the G5 in the college football playoff. But they've kind of got this triangle of madness going on where Tulane beat Memphis, but Memphis beat USF, but USF beat UTSA, and UTSA beat Tulane. So it's just kind of this never-ending circle of who can come out of it. Now, I guess the good thing is the CFP committee has shown that they're a "what have you done for me lately" committee. So what to me, what that means is, hey, Tulane's got the biggest win most recently. They beat number 22 Memphis last night. So you beat Memphis, and Memphis beat USF. So now you take Tulane and you put them on top. Now I can't guarantee that's what's going to happen when the rankings come out on Tuesday, but it feels like that's kind of where it would lead, as Tulane is the top out of those 3 teams. We'll see what happens with John Summerall, obviously getting talked about not only for the LSU head coaching job, but for head coaching jobs around the country. If Lane comes to LSU, he could very well go to Ole Miss. He could go to Auburn. Florida State opens up because they haven't met expectations. He could go there. There's a lot of places. Arkansas, another place that we could see John Summerall go be the head coach. So there's a lot of places he could go, but I would like to think he's locked in for the love he has shown Tulane, the love he's shown the city of New Orleans. I think he's all about trying to get to the college football playoff right now. And I think that'll be his number one priority. So hopefully we can see him stay in the green and blue for just a little bit longer to make it to the college football playoff. And that's all you need. Just make it to the dance. Once you make it, you never know what can happen. So let's talk about the boys in purple and gold, the LSU Tigers. Obviously, if you want to hear my thoughts on the head coaching search last week, you can go back and listen to that. You can go hear what I had to say. I think there's a lot of positivity with that head coach leaving the building, and I'm kind of excited about it as well. But I'm not going to get into that whole rant again. You can go ahead and listen up to what I had to say, or you can listen to one of our fellow creators, Eric, talked about it as well on the YouTube channel at Be in the Know. But it looks like before I actually do that, I want to kick it on over to our guy, Lineup LeBlanc, who just joined. Before I get into LSU, let's cover the Lions in Hammond, America. Huge win last week over East Texas A&M. It was never a question, never close. What are we looking for in Hammond, America?
Hey guys, good morning. Sorry for no face cam this morning. I'm actually on my phone this morning calling in. The Lions are playing away in Beaumont this weekend. They're playing a Lamar team who is really hot as well. They are firing on all cylinders. They lost a heartbreaker last week to UIW. And in that loss to UIW, they dropped down to 7-2 on the year to equal out the records of both Southeastern and Stephen F. Austin. So it makes that race even tighter to the Southland Conference Championship. However, the Lions are coming in on a 5-game win streak, and so I'm thinking that it's gonna look good for our guys. Um, I think it'll definitely be a close. It'll be a fight, but I'm hoping that we can pull it out. We can get a win in Beaumont, and then go on over to Incarnate Word next week, get another win, and we got Nichols to close out the season at home in Strawberry Stadium for the Riverbell Classic.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the rest of the schedule, if they win today, it's hard to believe they won't finish 10-2, which will be a phenomenal season for Selfo and the boys. So, really, really fun outlook. They're one of the only teams this year who we can say that about in Louisiana, that they're having a really fun outlook, and a lot of positivity around the program. But they are. I mean, they have a 2 QB system that's working well. They have some defensive players who are going to get NFL looks. I think it's a really good time to be a Lions fan.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And one thing I did want to mention too is this last week was the third week in a row that we had a special teams touchdown. We're coming off of Brandon Hayes with two kick returns for touchdowns, and then we actually had Dekai Joseph last weekend take a punt back for a touchdown. So this special teams is firing on all cylinders. Just all three phases of the game, the guys are playing very well. Defense has been dominant, holding teams to very low points. Having shutouts. So they're playing on their heads, and look, that offense is clicking. The question at the beginning of the year was, were they going to? And it looks like they are.
Yeah, they look really good. I remember earlier in the season when we had some questions about, who's the starting quarterback going to be? Can he do enough? Specifically, because correct me if I'm wrong, but one's more of a passer, one's more of a runner. So what kind of system do you want to run? But it seemed to work out well. I mean, like you said, they're firing on all cylinders. 5 wins in a row. They're playing their toughest matchup of the year, outside of LSU, obviously, and Lamar today. And then we'll see. We'll see how they move forward from that, taking on UIW and Nichols. All right, I think. No, go ahead.
Hey, that's all I had. I appreciate it, guys.
Sweet deal. Yeah, appreciate you. So yeah, hopefully we can talk about Southeastern again next week as an 8-2 team, moving on to 2 games at the end of their schedule that are very winnable, and then moving on to the Southland Conference Championship, which would be very, very exciting for all people in Louisiana to at least have one team to root for to make their conference championship, because it doesn't look like anybody else is. Continuing on though, LSU Alabama. Listen, again, I don't want to get into the head coaching thing again. I got it all out last week. We don't need to keep harping on it. We don't know who the head coach is going to be. The timeline is really bad for picking a head coach when all the head coaches you want are probably going to be CFB coaches. Verge Osbury did say he's willing to wait if the right guy is willing to wait. So we'll see, how long that holds up. But you missed that transfer window. You missed that National Signing Day window in late December to mid-January. That's going to be tough. So you're really going to need to find some stability. Now, they do have a president. They do have a permanent AD. So they've kind of got that flow going on. But the final piece is the most important, and that is the head football coach, which we will yet to see who is named LSU's head coach. Anyway, from that, moving on to today, we are going into Tuscaloosa, the number 4 team in the country, Alabama Crimson Tide. We're 5-3, and it does not look great. However, this is the type of game LSU wins. I don't know why, but it is. It feels like the type of game that they can figure out a way to win. I'm trying to be positive here. But I do think there's 3 keys to victory for today's game. Number one, something we were never able to do under Brian Kelly, and that is run the damn ball. Listen, if Alabama's got a weakness, it's their run defense. They're bottom 5 in the SEC. I believe they're in like the 80s or 90s nationally. So it is definitely their biggest weakness when it comes to all the phases of the game. So if LSU can figure out how to run the ball, I think that would be one way you can beat them. Harlem Berry's really come around recently. A New Orleans product who was recruited by interim head coach Frank Wilson. Has come along really, really well in the back half of this season. You saw the same thing last year with Caden Durham when he started popping off late in the year. So now you've got two running backs who can be really, really effective out of the backfield in Harlem and Caden. Point two of that run game is kind of using the pass game as an extension of the run game. So get the ball out of Nuss's hands and into the playmaker's hands, whether that's RPOs, slants, mesh concepts, quick outs, whatever it can be, to get the ball in the hands of Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas. Nick Anderson hasn't done much for us this year, but he can open some things up, being the wide frame that he is. So I think, if we use the pass game as an extension of the run, keep it close to the line of scrimmage, just 5, 6, 7 yard gains, that can be really, really big for us. And we've got to be physical. That's key number 2. We got to be physical. Be physical in the trenches. Listen, Alabama has one of the best pass rushes in the SEC, if not the nation. They've got some really big dogs on that defensive line. And they're going to come after you today. Nuss is not going to escape this game without grass stains on his back. That's the truth of the story. So you've got to be able to match their physicality and match that pressure. You got to put pressure on Ty Simpson. But when you put pressure on him, you got to also keep him contained, because once he gets outside the pocket, he can make some things happen with his legs. So you've got to put pressure on him up the middle of the line. You got to put hands in his face, put hands on his body while he's making the throws, and just make him a little nervous. You got to make him scared. It's not something he's been a lot this season outside of that first Florida State game, because Alabama's been rolling since then. But you've got to be physical. You've got to keep him in the pocket and put hands on him to make sure he can't complete the pass to their. I mean, they've got some wonderful receivers down in Tuscaloosa. Ryan Williams is a go for today. He's been hurt, but they said he should be good to go coming out of the bye week. So that's going to be a tough matchup. But if your pass rush can get in the face of the quarterback, it'll be tough for him to get the ball downfield to a guy like Ryan Williams and all the other receivers they have there as well. And then the third key to victory, it's ride the wave, man. I mean, listen, the past 2 weeks have been some of the craziest weeks in the history of LSU football. You fire a $100 million head coach. Everything about this program has changed. It went from, almost feeling like this nonstop just journey of everyone hates their life to now, Frank Wilson has changed it to alumni are getting in the building every single day, and practices are fun, and guys are playing physical, guys are playing with heart, which we didn't feel a lot during the season. It felt very heartless football. But coming out of this bye week, I expect things to change. Like I talked about with Auburn when we talked about our road dogs, you get that interim bump, and if anybody's going to get it, it's Frank Wilson. A hell of a recruiter, a hell of a leader. I said last week, he can make an ant run through a wall. Like he can make you get fired up for a football game. So I think he's going to do that with the boys today. I think he is going to get them in the headspace of, listen, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the records say. I don't care what the stats say. We can go in there and we can win a damn football game. And I think he's going to come out of this game, with that mindset, and hopefully we can do something. But it's time to lock in, man. Frank Wilson could make some really big changes for this football program. We're sitting at 5-3. If you can put the pedal to the metal and hang against Alabama, beat Western Kentucky, obviously, and you got Arkansas and Oklahoma to close it out. Let's play spoiler. You know what I mean? Let's go out 3-1 for the rest of this year and make people realize that the LSU they've seen recently is not the LSU they're going to see in the future. Go in there and show them who you've been all along, and that's a really physical football team who's ready to put on for your state. So that's kind of what I think we can do today. It's hard to say that we can go in there and just win the football game, because it's that's not logic. But like I said earlier, football ain't logic, man. The one thing in football is it's not going the way you think it is. So I'm I'm going to say we're going to win the game. Not only are we going to cover the 9.5 spread, we're going to go play spoiler. We're going to play the upset. Now, if we lose by 30, I won't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised at all. However, I'm going to have faith in my team. I have faith in our interim head coach, Frank Wilson. The guys seem to be buzzing. We have a really good defense who's going to play physical, play with their hairs on fire. I know Whit Weeks isn't playing, but DJ Pickett, the true freshman corner, has come along very, very well at the end of the year. DJ Pickett and Mansour Delaney are the number 2 and 3 corner when it comes to opposing QBR in the SEC. So I think they're going to play really, really good football today, locking down that wide receiver core. Defense is going to play physical. And if we can run the ball for 150, 170 yards, we can find a way to win this football game. So I'm going to take LSU to win it. I think it's going to be close. If we do pull it off, I think Damian Ramos, our career leader in points scored at LSU in the history of our football program, is going to kick a game-winning field goal, and we are going to win the game 23-26. That's my final score prediction.
I will, real quick, I will say, the best thing about this is you can play spoiler and even make the playoffs. This game right here would.
I was going to wait until after today to
15.
talk about that, but if you want to bring it up, listen, man. If you can beat the number 4 team in the country, and then you can beat Oklahoma at the end of the year, who's a top. I think they had them.
They're top 15 right now.
I think they had them as the first or second team out of the playoffs, so they were kind of like that 12 spot ish. So if you can beat 2 top 15 teams in the country, you finish out the season, at 9-3, and your only losses are to a college football playoff team in Ole Miss, a college football playoff team in Vandy. So obviously we want Vandy and Ole Miss to win out. That's what LSU wants, because if you do, it makes your losses look better.
Right.
What you got? I see you wanting to say something.
Two things.
It's tough. It's tough because you want them to win because it makes your loss look better, but also it's hard for them to win and you still make it in the SEC because you're limited in how many teams can make it from the conference.
No, not even that. With the whole coaching search, do you really want Ole Miss to win out?
See, yeah, there's no winning for LSU. That's the problem. If you want to make the playoff and play spoiler this year, you gotta hope that they win, but also you want them to lose because you want their coach. So
I like that thought. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So and then I hate to play bad guy. I hate to be the bad guy here.
I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Today is I think is important. I'm not watching today to see if LSU wins, if LSU covers. I'm watching to see how this team responds, because and I'm not even watching in a like, I need them to win. I hate the Gumps, and it's not even that. You're at a point where if this team completely falls apart, you're playing Western Kentucky for a chance to play in Birmingham, the Birmingham Bowl.
Yeah.
At this point, it's crazy to think how far we've come. We went from after week 2 or 3 to saying, oh man, we're a college playoff team, 11-1, 10-2, here we come, to can we make a bowl? And I think this game is extremely important to see how fired up these guys are, how engaged they still are. Are they fighting and playing for pride, or are they just going to roll over and just let whatever happen?
And that's kind of what I was talking about with that ride the wave. That third key to victory is you got to take all this momentum you're building, because believe it or not, firing the head coach created momentum, which doesn't really make sense in the grand scheme of things, but it's what it's done. I mean, you've brought alumni into the building who have come in and told you, like, hey, this is what you've done the past 8 games. That's not what LSU should be. That's not LSU football. What's LSU football is being the bully, being the aggressor, being the team that people are afraid to play. And right now, they're not afraid to play you. They want to play you. So what can you do to turn that around? So like you say, take away the scoreboard, take away the stats. How do they look? Do they look ready to play? Do they look like they want to play? Do they look like they're proud to wear those colors? Or are they just sitting back waiting for the rest of the season to go by so they can hit the transfer portal?
I
That's
will
what we've
say
gotta see.
this. I've said this the past 2 weeks ever since this whole debacle started. This game and really the rest of the season, but this game especially will really show whether this was really a coaching issue or this was a player issue. Now, I'm not saying player issue as in you didn't have the players. I think the future is bright for this team because there are a lot of young players who have really bright futures. And if they stay on this team will just explode. I mean, if
Yeah,
y'all
I
thought
mean-
this was supposed to be a playoff national championship team this year, just wait until next year if these guys do stick.
Yeah, listen, Michael Van Buren might get a couple snaps today. Frank Wilson's made that obvious that he might get some snaps at quarterback. If he can prove to you that he's the quarterback for next year, you've got your quarterback locked in. Harlem Berry's locked in the running back spot as a true freshman. He's going to be our starting running back next year, barring anything horrendous happening. Carius Kern has stepped in as a true freshman offensive lineman and played better than anybody else could have thought. DJ Pickett is one of the best corners in the country as a true freshman. And not only that, he's 6'5", 195. Like he has everything in his toolbox to be a 5-tool player as a cornerback and, be like Derek Stingley was and be a top 3 pick in 2 years. So like you're saying, we have got the building blocks for a really successful future. The question is who's going to be at the helm and do these guys want it? Do they want it? Do they have the motivation to go out there and play high-level football?
Yeah. No, it was just, my whole idea on this, I'm not trying to necessarily protect Brian Kelly's, career here or anything. But what I'm trying to say
I hope he doesn't have one. I'm trying to be nice, but he's done. He's done, man.
What I'm basically trying to say is, we all came into this season. I've always been opposed to the idea of a head coach being fired during a season. I've always been opposed to it. I know it can bring momentum change. It can bring change for the good. It can bring change for the bad. I've always been opposed to it because if you come into a season not 100% confident about a head coach, then why is he on your team still? Now, the weird thing is, you came into this team 100% confident about your head coach. You came in 100% confident about this team.
I don't know who you're speaking for, but you ain't speking for me right now. I have never been 100% confident in that.
There are a lot of people who came in, but look, I mean, even Banya, I can even speak for him. Everybody came into this team saying this was supposed to be a national championship contender right here. This team, if they don't make the semifinals, I mean, it would just be a heartbreaker, just underperforming expectations.
The expectation before the season was if you don't make the CFP, changes have to be made. But the truth of the matter is changes were made long before you even got the chance.
Right. I'm even comparing this to the 2019 season because nobody gave credit to Coach O for the success that this team had. They all credited the roster. Well, you came into this season, you spent $18 million on a roster that you thought would maybe not be that same caliber, but almost nearly that same caliber. And yet, you didn't have much success. You're not satisfied with the head coach either way. It's almost like LSU fans are never satisfied with the head coach that's at the helm ever since, Coach O came into play. So what I'm just trying to say here is this game could really show whether it was a coaching issue. And I'm not necessarily pointing at Brian Kelly as much as I'm trying to point at Joe Sloan here, because I do think he was the first one that's supposed to be fired rather than Brian Kelly. Or was it a player issue where, you have the players, but they're just not developed yet to go and win a national championship is what I'm trying to get to. So this game will really show. And look, if this team wins this game, then I get proven wrong, and it's all coaches that are to blame here, in my opinion. I think these players were right there from the start, and coming into this game, if they're ready for a fight with new momentum. Look, this is new life for the LSU Tigers, in my opinion. Everything that's happened these last 2 weeks, this is basically a completely new football team on the surface.
Yeah. As an LSU fan, when you speak of LSU fans never being happy with the coach, you are 100% correct. We are never happy with the coach. It is what it is. Listen, I haven't been alive long. I'm a young cat, but we weren't happy with Les Miles towards the last 3 years of his reign. We weren't happy with Coach O the last year and a half of his, and then we certainly weren't happy with Brian Kelly this past season. So, it's going to take a lot to please LSU fans. They're very they're very, if you win, everything's okay, but the second you lose, everything's a dumpster fire and the coach needs to go. And that's just the way it is. I wish I wasn't that way, but I am. So I just have to put up and shut up. But yeah, I think LSU. Listen, the thing today is it's either going to be a really close game or it's going to be a complete blowout. I don't think there's anything in between. Like the spread is either going to be 3 points or it's going to be 30 points. I don't see a gray area there because either your head coach is gone and everything falls apart or your head coach is gone and you're ready to BTA. So we'll see what happens. We're going to close up the show with our road to the playoffs. Obviously the playoffs are now approaching. CFP rankings are out. It's getting real for college football. Instead of doing 5 games, we're going to do 3. I think there's really 3 important matchups this weekend. Obviously, we already talked about the first one, and we're going to keep this quick. I'll give you the spread. Tell me your spread and your winner. We don't have to go, we already talked about a couple of these games a little bit. Let's start off with the college game day game. BYU and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is home, 13.5-point favorites. With Brigham Young coming into Lubbock, Texas. I'm going to take Texas Tech to win the game, but BYU to cover the spread.
I'm with you on that. That's exactly what I had in the beginning. That's what I'm going to stick with.
Same.
Yeah, I have the same here with that one.
Can we make it 5-0?
Well, I'm gonna disagree because the 2 times that I've recommended the BYU Storm and Mormons to win the game because of Taysom Hill being an alum, they did win those games. So I'm going to call it again. Let's go with BYU with the win.
All right. So you will sound like the Sharp if they win that game, but you will also sound like you don't know what you're talking about if they lose. So congratulations. You have put yourself on an island, sir. Moving on to our second matchup.
We have to take.
That is the risk you have to take. Yes, sir. Moving on to the second matchup. You've got number 9 Oregon versus number 20 Iowa in Iowa City this week. Oregon's 5.5-point favorites. They open at 7.5, so obviously the line's moving towards Iowa. Going to be a really physical matchup, Big Ten matchup. Weather's supposed to be not great, and the over/under is only 41.5, so we know points will not be scored. I think it's going to be a really close matchup, but I think Oregon's a better football team all around. They got a better coach. They got better players. Give me Oregon to win the game. I think 5.5 is a great line, but I'm going to take them to cover that as well. Give me Oregon to win the game and cover the spread.
Give me Oregon to also win this game by at least 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's going to be, I don't know. Look, Iowa's got a really great defense, but I also think that this offense of Oregon State is awesome as well, especially that passing game. Give me Oregon to win by at least 15.
I like it.
Yeah. I take Oregon to win, but I did give the stat about West Coast teams going east and East Coast teams going west. Give me Iowa to cover, and I think the over actually hits.
I like that. Now that's a hot take right there. The overhitting in an Iowa game is hilarious to me, but I love it. I love it.
No, I think this is a lesser Oregon team than we saw last year, but I think they'll win and cover as well.
Give me the Ducks.
I like it. Keep it short and sweet. All right, and then the final game we're going to talk about. We talked about this one a little bit before the show started, but it has probably one of the most major playoff implications around the country today, and that's with the number 3 team in the country, Texas A&M, undefeated, one of the only undefeated teams left in the country, and the Aggies are going into Columbia, Missouri to face the Tigers of Mizzou. I think, listen, it's really hard to go undefeated. Mizzou's got their backup quarterback. And, obviously, it on paper, it looks like A&M should run away with this, but something in me is telling me Mizzou's going to play upset. And it is going to create chaos in the SEC where you're going to have like 6 to 8 teams who are 1 or 2 loss teams. And you're going to have to figure out who's making it in from there. Give me Mizzou to play upset, not only cover, but win the football game at 2:30 p.m. on ABC.
Look, ever since that LSU A&M game, the A&M's kind of brought me into their new world here. So I'm leaning into Texas A&M here, of course. I do think they'll cover. The only worrying thing about me is Missouri's defense is really good. as we've seen so far this season. And Texas A&M's offense is pretty good against a really good defense when they played against the Tigers. I don't know if Missouri, and look, I know the quarterback doesn't really make a big difference here because they are mainly a running attack type of offense. But that might be the troublemaker here in this matchup for Missouri. Give me Texas A&M to win this game. I do think the over will hit for sure of 48.5. I do think Texas A&M will win this game by at least 6.5. Give me Texas A&M to win this game by 10.
I think it's also important to note while we're talking about it, Missouri's only 2 losses, Vanderbilt and Alabama. And both of those were one-score games. And the Alabama game really could have gone either way. They were driving down the field with 15 seconds left.
And to be fair,
to not be able to pull it out.
Vanderbilt game could have went either way too.
Yeah, I mean, you lose 2 top 10 matchups by a combined 10 points. So Mizzou's 6-2 may not look great, but their record does not reflect how great that football team is.
Yeah. Vandy's quarterback, no, I'm sorry, not Vandy. Mizzou's quarterback looked great when he had to come in against Vandy after the injury. However, there's a big difference in coming in off the bench and you're the guy and everybody's planning for it. I think Texas A&M wins. I think Mizzou covers in a close one. And unfortunately, I've got to pick against LSU's next head coach, Eli Drinkwitz.
Don't you put that bad juju on us.
That's a bad juju.
Listen, I think Drinkwitz is a phenomenal head coach, but I think he would look beautiful in orange and blue in Gainesville. I do not like him in the purple and gold. Shout out Eli Drinkwitz. Great coach, great recruiter. Again, kind of like Frank Wilson, really pumps up his guys, but not a fit here for Baton Rouge, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, this was my. But going back to this game, this was my trap game for Texas A&M from the beginning. So we have to stay on it and pick Mizzou.
All right, so we're 2-2 when it comes to Mizzou versus A&M taking home the W. Let's break that tie. Who's going home with the W?
Hey, look, so Texas A&M is firing on all cylinders. The team is really killing it. I've always said Mizzou doesn't belong in the SEC. Give me Texas A&M.
Mizzou doesn't belong in the SEC. I mean, yeah, it's fair. I mean, if you look at their best years, it was in the Big 12.
Gotta disagree on that, but
I mean, they've made it to more SEC championships than Texas A&M has. I'm just saying.
Everybody has.
And they have an SEC head coach, whether he's in purple and gold or orange or blue next year.
Yeah, it could even be a Big Ten coach if he decides to go in the navy and white up to the Nittany Lions. So we could, I mean, listen, the coaching carousels, we could have a whole episode just about that. I think that's going to be really fun over the next 2 to 3 months. So we'll stay, we'll keep our ear to the ground and our eyes on the field when it comes to that. I think this is going to be really fun. I hate Texas A&M, so go Mizzou. But it should be a fun weekend of college football where all eyes are going to be on Tuscaloosa. When LSU goes to town. Let's hope the Lions can make their mark and continue the Southland Conference Championship. My dog is joining me, so I guess that means it's time to go. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on all social medias at Be In The Know, as well as all of our individual accounts you can find on theknow.com. So we will see you next week. Go Tigers, both LSU and Mizzou.